Welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast, where we talk self-care strategies for creatives. We also talk mindset, wellness, personal growth, and artist development within the music industry. I'm your host, StefaniFryzel. I'm an artist, author, and creative coach, and the founder of StefaniFryzel Coaching, where we help artists, songwriters, and producers increase their impact, income, and visibility within a year with our artist development program. This season, we are diving deep into calling forth your next level. I'm so glad you're here. Jazmine Valencia is the founder of JV Agency. With artist-focused marketing and a culture-building savvy approach, Valencia has helped advance the careers of an eclectic and hugely successful roster of top-selling artists, including The Killers, Fall Out Boy, Avicii, Max Frost, American Authors, and Shawn Mendes, to name a few. Valencia is widely recognized not just for her business, but for her down-to-earth attitude and motivational approach with her team and artists alike. She's a sought-after speaker on various subjects such as digital marketing, social media, and women's empowerment. Please welcome my next guest, Jazmine Valencia. So welcome to the Self-Care for the Creative podcast. My next guest is actually a friend of mine. I'm so excited to have her on to talk about social media marketing, branding, all the things that we as artists and songwriters need to figure out, learn how to do, and get into some really good, juicy discussion around all of the things that are social media marketing. Please welcome Jazz Valencia.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. So maybe you could just do a quick introduction of yourself, give us a backstory. I know you told an awesome story the day that we met on a panel. We were both speaking at a panel at NYU, and you told kind of how you got into music marketing. And I was like, whoa, what a cool story.
Yeah, definitely. So I do music marketing. I run JV Agency, which is my agency. We're actually celebrating our 10-year this year.
Yes, congrats.
Thank you. I got started as an intern. I started interning my first day at Def Jam in New York. So I kind of loved it. It was an amazing experience. And, I said I got my music education at Def Jam because I started as an intern. And by the time I left, I was like the head of the department, digital marketing. And then I left to start my company. So I got to, see everything from the beginning to end, which is like some amazing artists. Anything from, Mariah Carey to like Shawn Mendes. So literally all over the place, which is great. Yeah. And then, so that's kind of how I got started in music, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. You were like, casually, I like climbed to the top of the ladder, and I was like, peace, I'm going to start my own business. And here we are. It's amazing. So I'm curious, like when you're coming across, songwriters and artists that work with you in your company, like what are some of the pain points that you tend to see a lot when people want to work on their social media marketing?
Definitely, and more recently has been how social media affects your mental health. That's literally like the common denominator, right? We all know how important it is and how it's a great tool, but we also know how exhausting it can be, not only because of all the work that goes into it, but just like emotionally, right? And a lot of people use it to compare themselves to others, unfortunately, and that's when it becomes a problem. So definitely just like having those boundaries of like, yes, I need to do social media for my job, but I also need that space for my mental health.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a tough thing to balance, myself included. Like I definitely have to catch myself sometimes. I'm like, all right, we're going a little too hard on this area. I got to pull back. And, so I think it's, somebody said recently, it was actually at a baby circle recently. I went to, I brought my 3-month-old to the baby circle to meet friends and stuff. And the facilitator was saying like, as a new parent, like there is no balance. Like there's the act of balancing.
Right.
So I was like, whoa, that was such an amazing breakthrough for me, because it was like, well, how do you define balance? Like, it's not one thing, it's
Right.
the act of balancing. So when you're an artist or a songwriter and you know you have to do social media and you know it's part of your job, some weeks it's going to be a little heavier on the content creation. And then other weeks it's going to be like, listen, I need a mental health break for a
Right.
second.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only we, only us as creators can kind of define what that line is. And it's that active balancing. So I want to get into a little bit about just like when people work with you and your agency, how do you guys come up with your social media strategy? Like, what goes into that process? Like, if I'm a new person and I want tips on my social media strategy, how do you approach working with your clients?
Yeah, it definitely starts with the artist and the music, right? And it's always different just based on that. So we ask the artist, like, what are your goals? And everybody has different goals. Of course, everybody wants to be like the best and biggest at what they're doing, but let's be specific. Like, what does that look like to you? We have some artists that they kind of have like a rhythm or a groove. They just need the extra help, right? Just because they're like, oh, I'd rather spend time in the studio than having to do social media.
Yeah.
Some artists just don't like doing it, period. Like they're just like, I can't even think about it. And then some artists are like, oh, I like doing it. I'm a little bit more involved. So it kind of depends on that. But we start with like analyzing like where you're currently at and where you want to go. And then that's when we figure out, okay, these are the steps that we need to take in order to do that. And whether that's like maybe focusing on 1 or 2 platforms instead of 10, or maybe it's, like having a better system. So when you are at the studio, you are recording and you're like, oh, wait, I need to film that. And we have content and we're not like, oh, wait, we don't have anything to post. So whatever that strategy is, but it's looking at like, what are you currently doing now that works for you, that you're like, okay, I can continue to do this.
Yes.
And what are you currently doing now that you're just like, I can't do this anymore. So let's take that out. Right. And figuring out what that is for each of you.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I've struggled with this too in the past, where I'm kind of like, I wasn't being honest with myself about what my weaknesses were. And like, if I would look at a weakness and be like, oh, I need to improve this weakness, right? And focus on, on one hand, that can be helpful, but it can also be so empowering to be like, you know what, this is not my strength. I'm going to go hire someone else that can come in and do it better than I ever could. I'm going to release the reins and focus on my zone of genius that brings me the most joy and the most happiness and all of those things. And so it just makes me think about like that line again of like, how do you balance the social media with the mental health? And like, how do you know where that line is? I heard you say when you work with your clients, it's, sort of case by case scenario, depending on their goals, depending on where they're at. Do you look at, how do you niche an artist online? Because, music is one niche, and then, there's the music reels that people do. And like, how do you help your artists like differentiate themselves online?
Yeah, that really starts with the artist and if they know their brand. Most artists do, or they have a good idea of what they want it to be. So that's kind of like the guiding light behind everything. If you're an artist and you're just not sure, then we kind of help you figure that out. But I think, everybody has something that makes them different and unique. So let's like highlight that and let's bring that forward to whatever we're doing online, right? So it's like when you go to see a show live and you see the artist perform, they're doing something unique. So let's take whatever that uniqueness is and bring it into what we're doing on anything online.
Yes.
So that's kind of like the process. Yeah.
Right. Like highlighting what they're already doing. Yeah. Because, when I think of like niche, I think, okay, music is one thing. And then how people experience that music online is completely different. So I'm curious if there's some like digging into like certain hashtags just to find out like what's performing well, and then doing some analytics around it and being like, okay, well, that worked, but that didn't work. Is there still like even that, like a lot of like back and forth of just like analyzing the analytics, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we definitely look at analytics for everything that we do, because we want to know what's working, what's not working. But also the platforms are changing literally daily now. Like there's always a new feature. They take something out. They're like reworking this. They're testing this. So, looking at the analytics kind of gives you like another, like a little guideline. It's not always like spot on. And sometimes there's anomalies because there might be another factor happening that made you either perform really well or not perform really well.
Yes.
So, but it's a combination of looking at your own analytics, looking at like the industry benchmarks, and also looking what the platform itself is doing. TikTok is literally every day there's like something different that they're doing. Instagram kind of follows suit with what they test, and they don't test, and the features they make available for different accounts. It's funny, like we obviously have different accounts where like, oh, this account has this feature, but this account doesn't have it.
Right. You're like,
Know?
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always like, which one? And they're like, oh, that feature. And then, oh, wait, all of a sudden it's gone. Or like, oh, we just used it yesterday, but now it's not available, So
The world of
yeah.
adapting as a creative, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, for sure. All right, we are taking a quick commercial break to tell you about my book, Self-Care for the Creative. If you are an artist, songwriter, creative entrepreneur, whatever it is you do, and you're feeling like you're running on empty or suffering from burnout, then Self-Care for the Creative is the survival guide you did not know that you needed. Inside, you're going to discover ways to nail the basics of self-care, how to thrive as an empowered empath, how to maximize your creativity and manage your career, and build a self-care toolkit that supports you. Self-Care for the Creative is more than just a book. It is a roadmap to staying sane, successful, and soulful in your creative career. All right, let's get back to the podcast episode. I had a quick question about, like you said earlier, about how an artist can sometimes be like, you know what, I don't want to do the social media part. I just don't want to do it. Do you find that the ones that are able to find it within themselves to be like, you know what, I have to embrace this as part of my job. I have to take this seriously. I have to get over myself. I have to. Do you find that there is like more success with people that take that attitude as opposed to, I don't want to do it,
1,000%.
Okay.
Like, and I say this to the artists that have the attitude of like, I don't want to do it, because it's with any job, there's going to be a part of your job that you don't love. I feel like you could love your job 99.9% of the time, but there's going to be at some point something that you're just not going to love. In this case, unfortunately, this is like the way the industry has as a whole morphed into like social media, posting on TikTok, posting on Reels, YouTube Shorts, all the different platforms. Unless the industry as a whole decides that's not the measure that we're like giving artists, we're not like, it's part of it now. Like it's become such a part of it, right? So if you're always like, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do that, then it's like, then do you really want this?
Yes.
Right.
Do you want it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how much do you really want this? Because I think, all of us, like whether it was like if you went to college, you had to take a class that you didn't love, but if you want a degree, guess what? That was part of it, right? If you want to be an athlete, guess what? You have to wake up at 4 a.m. and train every day to run the marathon or whatever you're doing. You have to do those things that you don't love. It's all part of it. Like if you look at LeBron James, like how many practices did he do? Like how many early mornings, all the things that he had to sacrifice to get to where he is. And that's what it is. It's a sacrifice for your ultimate goal and your dream. This just happens to be in the form of social media, which again, it's not ideal for everybody, but it's just part of it. So I think with anything that you do in life, there's going to be like, think about it when you're like in high school and you want to like drive, like that's so cool, right? I get to have my license and drive, but you have to take that stupid test.
Yeah. They don't just let anybody on the road, you guys.
Yeah.
You need to like actually study and like, learn.
And you have to do the written test, and you have to like learn the hand signals, and then you had to like go to the driving for, like there were always parts of it that were not fun, right? That were not that exciting, but it was just part of it. So like, I feel like everything is like that. And then so the artists that are like, I don't want to do it, I'm out. It's like, do you want this as a hobby or as a career where it's lucrative and you can make money and you can like literally do this every day that you wake up? So I definitely have seen the difference. The people that are like, I'm doing this because I like to do it, but I don't want to play the game, because that's what it is, right? You're choosing to participate in this game of the music industry.
Right.
Not everybody gets to be a winner at the end, right?
Right.
So if you choose to participate and like play as best as you can, then you're doing the things that are required, which in this case happens to be social media. So that's
exactly. You said it so well. It comes back to like, some strategies in my book with just defining and being aware of like where your line is, because if you're going to play this game, you got to play the game. You know what I mean? Like you got to play the game. It's part of the game. I'm sorry to break it to you, but know yourself, like know your limits, know your line, know your boundaries, and be like, all right, cool. Here's my goal, and putting your head down and just focusing on only that. Cause you said earlier, like so many people struggle with the comparisons and they get trapped in this whole thing. And that's what's causing like a mental pitfall, right? So that's the thing that people, proceed with caution. This is going to be, it's like you said, you got to learn how to drive. You also have to know where there's going to be potholes, and that
Yeah.
can be a pothole for
Yeah.
people to be like, oh, that, they blew a tire and now they, they can't drive
Yeah.
anymore because they're too busy comparing themselves to people. But yeah, so, it made me think about when I had you come join us in the music industry panel. I had you on as a guest for social media marketing, and you said something that stuck with me since. And you were like, something I recommend artists to do is to like pick a number of like pieces of content that's realistic for you to make and stick to that. And what I loved about that so much was that it was like everybody's number can be different, like your number of content pieces doesn't have to be 35. Like
Right.
it could be 3 really good pieces of content and
Right.
just
Right.
go with that. So I love that you encourage your clients to take that approach and help them define what that number is, or just have that as like a benchmark as opposed to being like, okay, this is the plan. We're going to film a gazillion pieces of content and then we're all going to burn out and we're all going to want to jump off a bridge. So anyway, so let's get into like just a couple like quick takeaways. What are your top 3 social media marketing pro tips? If you had to take 3 tips to a desert island, what are the 3 things you recommend?
Definitely, we were saying before, like have like knowing your balance, like knowing your line, knowing like, use the tools on your phone, like when you reach this amount of screen time, right? Like you're off, right? Like all those measurements and tools that you have, just so you have that balance of like, okay, I can't spend my whole day trying to figure this out. Like I know artists will spend like 2 hours editing a reel, and then it's like, no, right?
Yeah.
Like don't do that.
Yeah.
So knowing your limits and like schedule yourself, like, okay, I'm going to spend Monday filming content, Tuesday I'm going to edit it, and then Wednesday I'm going to post it, and that's it, right? Like knowing what that is, like, so you have your balances. I think that's really important. Don't compare yourself. Obviously it's easier said than done, but it's really hard because everybody's different position all around, like from every level, right? From artistic level, from like a financial level, from like, they might have been doing this longer, they might have a different career that might have helped them to get better in this career, right? So there's all these different factors. So like comparing yourself to somebody else, it just doesn't work. You're just kind of wasting time at that point. And then I probably say like something else is like I was saying earlier, like find your number, right? Like, to make content, like what that is sustainable for you, how you can feel good about yourself. Like, oh, I accomplished something for my career today, which was filming content, posting it, whatever. So you feel like there's progress, because as long as you have progress, maybe 2 months ago you were doing 2 reels a week and now you're doing 3. That's progress. Great.
Yes.
Amazing.
Let's get into something like super like techie and weird and like, because, I'm always curious, like, 'cause there's things changing all the time. There's new things happening, new editing and effects and all the kinds of things that are happening on TikTok and Instagram. What are the top apps, editing tools, schedulers? Like, what are the tools for making your social media content strategy efficient? Like, what are the things that you're using the most with your clients?
Yeah, I think it's funny because every artist is so different. So we use all kinds of different tools, but they're like, this artist uses this set, this artist uses this set, right? So something that easy that everybody has, it's free, like Google Sheets, right? It's free. You don't have to spend an extra like subscription or something.
Yes.
Start with something. I would say start with something that is free first and make sure it works for you. When you get to a point where you're like, I've used all the free tools out of this and it's not doing it what I need to do, that's when you go into a paid subscription of whatever, like obviously Reels or Instagram just, release edits, to edit your Reels. Like that app it's interesting, easy to use. So again, instead of going to pay a subscription for like an app that you have to pay $20 a month or something, try what's free. I think that's great. Tools like Hootsuite, Later, they have like a free and paid version. Those are also very helpful though, just to kind of help you keep organized. That goes back to, are you organized enough to like keep a calendar and a schedule? A lot of artists aren't. They just kind of want to post on the fly. So then just like, if that's the case, I would just like keep notes on your phone and like do drafts on your phone directly. That way you're not spending time and money on other tools.
Right. Exactly. This just like totally popped into my head. I think it's important to just touch on real quick, but like AI is taking over the world.
Yeah.
It's taking over our brains. What's your take on AI and the tools that are available to us? Like what's the pros? What's the cons for AI?
Yeah, I definitely see it as a tool to save me time, honestly. Like that's just the bottom line. And I like to tell artists, artists are like scared it's going to replace them. Like at the end of the day, it can't do what you can, like especially in the creative side, but it can save you a lot of time to do research. Instead of like typing it, you can just upload the photo, the screenshot, and it types it out for you, right? Like those little things that would take 20, 30 minutes, now it'll take like a minute. So using that just to be more efficient, but taking the time you're saving and applying that time to something creative that AI can do. It's not like, oh, I saved 30 minutes, I'm just going to go watch 30 minutes of TV, right? Like, I mean, like, I guess technically you could, but let's take advantage of the time that is saving you to do something creative. So that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Cause I'm just like, we're all using it to some degree. And it's just like, where's the line? And, sometimes when I'm using it to spit something out for me really quick, it's interesting how it's changed my expectancy for things to be done so fast. And if it's not done quick enough, I'm like, oh, this is too slow. Like, oh, this is too slow. Obviously, you're running your own business, you're working with clients, all of those things. This is a self-care podcast. Like, what do you do for your self-care and how do you stay balanced juggling all the things that you do?
It's funny. I was thinking about this because I think I really started self-care. I will thank the pandemic for this. And that's because when the pandemic started, I happened to be in LA. I didn't like fully live here yet, but then we were here and we stayed and we were like, well, we're here, we're home, let's get a dog. So I got my dog Dax, and because he was a puppy, you have to take him out like a million times until they learn how to potty.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So I was literally taking, like, I would be like, okay, time to go for a walk, closing my laptop, and then I was just like present in the walk with him. So that's something that I still do this till this day. Like, I'll be like, oh, time for a walk, and we do take like a walk where like I obviously have my phone with me, but I don't look at it, and I'm just like present in the walk. And that's made such a difference. So again, I realized he just turned 5. So I'm like, oh yeah, we've been doing this now 5 years.
Yeah.
Of like taking these daily walks. But like we're glued to our computers, we're glued to our phones. So like literally just being like, okay, I'm shutting this down, like close laptop, put my phone in my pocket and just like be present and just like take a nice little walk, has been really great. And like not knowing that I would enjoy it this much. And then now it's just like, it's great. It's great. We just go on these daily walks.
Yeah. This is part of my daily routine. This is what I do. Amazing.
Yeah.
So if you could give like a self-care piece of advice to your younger self, like you're just starting out in this music industry, you don't know what the heck is going on. Is there some things that you would tell your younger self, like back then, like, by the way, disclaimer, here's some advice before you go on this wild journey in music?
Yeah, I definitely didn't know about the work-life balance. It like, especially like working at Def Jam, it was like such a demanding place. And now like running my company, I make sure that we do have the work-life balance, like after 6, unless it's like literally urgent because the show is tonight at 9 p.m. Like it can wait till tomorrow, right? Like that's what I like consider urgent if it's like happening real time in the next few hours. But otherwise it can wait till tomorrow morning because it'll be there. Guess what? It's not going away. So having that work-life balance really important. Everybody's a little bit better now than they were a few years ago in that respect. But we still forget. And like actually during the fires here in LA, people that we work with on the East Coast, they were like, can we message? Luckily we were fine, but like they were like, could we? And I'm like, we're fine, but it's still pretty crazy and chaotic here. So I'm like, guess what? It can wait. Like it's gonna be all right. It can wait till the album art will get done. Like the video will go up on YouTube. It's fine. Like it can wait. So like realizing those things that it's not that urgent. We're not saving lives at the end of the day. So like figuring what that work-life balance is for you, I think it's key. So that's what I would say. Like figure out what that is for you.
Oh, this was so good. I'm so glad we had this conversation. Thank you for hopping on this podcast. Where can people find you? How can they work with your agency? Where would you like them to go check you guys out if they want to work with your company?
Yeah, definitely. It's jvagency.co is the website and all the handles are at jvagency. We check all the DMs and everything. We always love hearing new music. So please send me new music. We'd love to hear it. That's where they can find us. And if anybody's in LA, they can come to my restaurant to see that I open on Sunset. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's focused on, eating healthy and wellness and nourishing your body, which is part of mental health as well.
Amazing. Yeah. 100%. Amazing. Yeah. I will definitely put all of those links in the show notes so you guys check that out so you can follow Jazz and her company and her restaurant. Congratulations. Best of luck. I'm so excited to see what happens next. Yay.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're an artist, songwriter, or producer looking to rise to your next level, come join us at the Songwriter Series for music mentorship from hit songwriters. Or join us at our annual Hitmakers Songwriting Retreat this October in Los Angeles. For more info on all our events, visit StefaniFryzel.com or just email us at info@StefaniFryzel.com. For more self-care gems, check out my book, Self-Care for the Creative. And don't forget, self-care is always within reach, and your greatest masterpiece will always be you.